Hello and welcome to Anxious Rider 78 YouTube channel. This is my first vlog, and I've decided to film it in possibly one of the most beautiful spots in my hometown. This is the ancient site of the Roman city of Verulamium. Very peaceful spot, somewhere that I come quite a lot to just relax and enjoy the peace, really, gather thoughts. This is my first vlog of the Anxious Rider channel, so please bear with me. It's going to be a warts and all sort of introduction to the channel, who I am, what I'm doing and why, including a bit of a backstory. There is a backstory, so you'll have to bear with me on that one. But so let's crack on, really. I suppose I really should start with a bit about the anxiety that I have. I suffer with general anxiety, predominantly triggered social and a general depression, which is not a great combination, and does obviously at times hamper what I can do, where I can go, etc. But you know, I'm constantly working and battling to beat that. So my roller coaster story starts back in 2014, when I started dating my now wife, who our first date was at Thorpe Park, believe it or not. Crazy place for a first date. And she challenged me with the idea that if we were truly meant for each other, and I was that infatuated with and in love with her, that I would do anything and I would be able to get on a roller coaster for her. So that was the challenge in 2014. I did. I managed one roller coaster, probably not the best roller coaster to start with. It was Nemesis Inferno, which I would never recommend for anybody who suffers ride anxiety as a starter. It's quite an intense one, so maybe don't start there like I did. So I did that in 2014, and that was kind of the end of it, really, until probably about 2 years later, when we went on a family day trip to Chesington. My anxiety was what it was, and for over that period, but we went there for a family day out during the summer holidays, and I hadn't realised just how much anxiety roller coasters and rides, it wasn't just roller coasters at this point, it was just rides in general, caused me. And the low point of that trip was having to do what we call in our house the walk of shame from Scorpion Express. A moment I'm not proud of at all. So needless to say, there was never any chance of doing vampires or rattlesnakes when my anxiety just wouldn't even let me get on to something as simple family ride like Scorpion Express. So from then on, I avoided those kind of parks, I suppose. Theme parks, I love theme parks, but they weren't a source of pleasure for me. They were a torment, if anything. And didn't want to put myself through that. So as most people with anxiety, you avoid your triggers. So that's what I did. And then in 2019, my wife decided that we should become Merlin annual pass holders, as part of a better value way of visiting various places. Obviously the list of Merlin attractions is over 25 attractions across the UK now. It didn't just mean theme parks, there are other places too. So we did that, and in 2019 we made a number of trips to Legoland, Chessington. I think we made one trip to Thorpe Park because Thorpe Park was the worst trigger point for me. Big rides, massive anxiety attacks, just held no appeal. So we did one trip, and that was purely for my older two, my eldest, my daughter, and my eldest son, for them to go and have a bit of a thrill ride, but there was no attraction for me. Park visits involved just basic family rides for me, Scorpion Express, those kind of rides, Toon Blaster at Chessington, Dragon's Apprentice, although I have to admit to that being an anxiety trigger in the early days. In the summer of 2019 we made a trip up to Alton Towers, which, you know, I thought, great, let's go and see if there's a ride up there that might be less of a trigger for me. So we went to Alton Towers, and well, the anxiety was horrific. I finally managed on the second day of us being at the park to ride Galactica, which, as most of you know, is billed as more of a sort of family, less intense ride. That didn't help. It was still a very anxious experience, but my body, basically a mind, tried everything to get me out of the queue line. I was with my wife, who was adamant that I was going to do the ride because she knew that's what needed to be done to get me onto it. But I literally tried every trick in the book. I need the toilet, I feel sick, you know, that's the point my mind was at. I did the ride. I will include the ride photo. It was horrific. I am literally terrified, and you can see the terror in my face. So, and that was pretty much the end of our 2019 first Merlin season. 2020 we did pass holder day at Chessington just before lockdown was announced. Just a basic visit, you know, quick couple of Scorpion Express, Toon Blaster, those kind of rides again, nothing too major. And then once things reopened later on that year, we headed back to Chessington, and again I did manage the Vampire on a couple of occasions on visits to Chessington. I wouldn't say it was a pleasurable experience. It was the scrunched eyes closed. It was very much holding on for dear life. That kind of experience, you know, that any of you with ride anxiety will understand. Basically just praying to get to the end in one piece. And at the end of that 2020 season, my long-suffering wife, bless her, put it to me that if I wasn't going to challenge myself and I couldn't get past even rides like Vampire, you know, and wasn't prepared to challenge myself a bit more, that there wasn't really much point in us hanging on to the Merlin passes, and that we might as well just let them go. So we agreed one more season. That was the thing, one more season, and we'll take it from there. And if by the end of 2021 I'm not more confident, trying a bit more, then fair enough, I'll relinquish my pass, because, you know, it's a waste of money. So on came 2021, and we started off with our usual, you know, trips to Legoland, Chessington. Felt a bit braver, I'm not going to lie. Vampire was less of a challenge. Rattlesnake was also done. The Dragon at Legoland. Although I've never been a fan of that ride. I never feel safe in it. That the the restraints lap bar on that ride just never ever feel adequate for me. But that's just a personal opinion. I'd be interested to hear what other people think about that. And then in June 2021, we decided that okay, it's time to step it up a gear, and my wife decided to persuade me to go on a trip with her to Thorpe Park, as we had done back in 2014, and the main aim of it was to get through a ride on the Swarm, which in her opinion was the most gentle coaster, a great starter coaster for somebody who's feeling a bit braver, but is still going to suffer serious anxiety attacks. So we did that. It was an anxiety experience, I'm not going to lie, but we did it twice that day, and by the end of it, I have to say, I enjoyed the ride. It was a bit more comfortable, it was almost pleasurable. Queue line has always been, and probably always will be, the biggest issue for me, but please excuse the tractor. Obviously this is a live feed, live film, so there's going to be bits. So after that, we decided to book another trip to Alton Towers, and I felt sort of confident that if we went to Alton Towers, then 13, Wicker Man, Galactica, it's 3 big rides there that I probably would be able to do. And I was looking at that time at all sorts of different things that I could use to help keep my anxiety under control. Calms, chewing gum, thinking about other things, distractions in queue lines, all those kind of things that having done CBT help with anxiety triggers. Before we went to Alton Towers, we did another trip to Thorpe Park, and I did my usual Swarm, and it was also my oldest son's first trip on the Swarm, which he absolutely loved, and he went on to do Colossus that day as well, which at that point was a big no for me, but I was proud of him, because he does share some of my anxieties when it comes to roller coasters. Another trip to Thorpe Park was made 2 weeks before our trip to Alton Towers, and that time I actually did manage, with relatively no issue, to ride the Swarm, and even managed to ride it with my son. Being able to ride with somebody else is a big thing for me, because up to this point I'd only ever been able to ride a ride with my wife, because that's the only time I felt safe. So being able to do it with my eldest son, which was a dream come true for me, to be able to ride with him, was an absolutely massive development, and really enjoyable. After that, I also did Colossus that day. That was a less pleasurable experience, but it was done, and it was one ride that I had said, I'm not going to do that. I can't do that ride. There's too many twists, there's too many inversions, it's too high, it's too fast, it's all the kind of things that my anxiety would tell me were negatives about the ride. So we did our trip to Alton Towers, and just before we went, the revelation to my wife came about me intending to brave Rita, which I'd never mentioned about before, but having done Colossus and Swarm, I was feeling a bit braver and thought, you know, as well as Wickerman and 13, which I think by this point I felt I could confidently conquer, I wanted to challenge a bit more, and that seemed like the next obvious ride to me that would present, you know, a challenge, but a quick challenge. I did talk about the possibility of doing Oblivion, but unfortunately that just didn't happen. So we went to Alton Towers, and yeah, I did Wickerman, loved Wickerman, have to say. First time, anxiety, massive anxiety. We were talking shakes, we're talking sweats, we're talking nausea. But once I was on and did it, wow, what a ride. And I can thoroughly recommend it to anybody, anxious riders, nervous riders. You know, it's a thrill, but actually it feels like a safe thrill. I did 13, less of a safe thrill, a bit more anxious on that one. That one did involve a lot of eye closing and face scrunching, and is it over yet? But I did it, and also managed to do Rita, which was an absolutely terrifying experience. I wasn't probably ready quite for a launch coaster, but you know, it was done, and I felt good. I got my medals, which my wife always buys me when I conquer a new ride, and I felt really good about myself. As I said, Oblivion, it was originally on my list, didn't manage it in the end. It just wasn't going to happen. My anxiety wasn't prepared to let me challenge and do that as well. And then September, we booked another trip to Thorpe Park, because in the meantime my eldest son and I had discussed various rides at Thorpe, and we decided, whether wisely or not, that maybe we actually felt a bit braver and we'd like to try Soar and maybe Stealth. So we persuaded my wonderful wife to take us to Thorpe Park, and we actually both shocked her by riding both of those rides that day. And by this point, I have to say that, you know, my ability to queue and get on these rides was it had improved significantly. I think because of the YOLO conversation I'd had with my eldest son in the queue line for a Nemesis Inferno one day, about you know, there's a nasty virus out there that could take any one of us at any time. You know, and here I am letting my anxieties and my fears conquer me. But also, by getting on a roller coaster, what's the worst that could happen? And you know, if that's the way that I'm going, then what better way to go than flying around on a roller coaster? So I've got a YOLO t-shirt that my wife had printed to commemorate that day, because it was a massive turning point. It did allow me to be able to do Stealth twice last year, Soar 3 times last year, Colossus again. I managed front row rides on Swarm, both left and right, and with other people. Samurai I managed last year. I have to admit this, or acknowledge at this point, there's a Facebook group for Merlin annual pass holders, and they're a magnificent group. Such support and encouragement for somebody like me they've given, and it was them that coined the big boy pants sort of term for me. That what I needed to do was find my big boy pants and get on the ride and just do it. And so hence why the Anxious Rider logo features a man wearing Big Pants. That's homage to the Big Boy Pants discussions that I had with numerous members of the Merlin annual pass holders group. So yeah, would I still refer to myself as an anxious rider? Absolutely. You know, I get on rides now. You know, but by the end of that trip, I certainly felt an awful lot better about doing rides. We also, in discussion with the Facebook group that I've mentioned, I set myself a challenge last year. A challenge I never ever thought I would dare to set myself, or if I did set it, I certainly wouldn't have made it as public as I did. And my challenge was that by the end of the 2021 season, I would have ridden at least once every single big ride on every Merlin UK theme park, which is, you know, it's quite a sizable list of rides. But what it did mean is that I needed to go back to Alton Towers. There were a couple of rides there that I needed to complete that challenge. Oblivion, the Smiler, and obviously the original Nemesis, all of which I'd failed to do in the summer. So I persuaded my darling wife again to drive us all the way up to Alton Towers for a day, and we did a joint first ride on Oblivion, which I have to say, massive anxiety trigger, that the build up to getting on that ride, only to feel a massive anticlimax. I've got to be honest and say I came off that ride going, was that it? We went and then we did Nemesis Inferno. Didn't cause me anywhere near the anxiety that Nemesis Inferno had done at Thorpe Park, so didn't feel that was terribly uncomfortable. The absolute tragedy was that the Smiler had broken down about a week before our visit, and was not to run again in 2021. So I had to obviously chalk that one off for 2021. But I finished the challenge, Halloween, I believe it was, at Chesington, when I finally chalked up the last couple of rides there that I hadn't done, which included things like Monkey Swingers, and Cobra, and Dragon's Fury, all of which, you know, were just on the list. Didn't really cause me any anxiety to get on them after other rides I'd done. They were quite tame, safe rides, so didn't really feel that there was much to that. But I completed my challenge. I'd managed to do every single, bar the Smiler, big ride on every UK Merlin theme park, and I have to say the pride I felt was just unbelievable. And I think that was helped by the fact that my achievement was celebrated within the pass holders group, which was lovely. You know, the pat on the back, the praise from them, but mostly from my wife, who never thought that I would ever get to the point where that challenge was even a feasible idea, let alone a realistic target, and that I would actually complete it. But I did. So now we're into 2022, and I can't wait for Thorpe Park opening weekend. Got my tickets booked for the 28th. Yeah, 28th I think it is, whichever is the Saturday of opening weekend. There's a couple of flat rides at Thorpe that didn't get chalked off last year that I'm intending to do. Rush, Vortex are the two there, as well as some revisits to my old favourite, the Swarm, and hopefully some more rides on Stealth and Soar and Inferno. But I appreciate it's first day of the season, first Saturday of the season. It could be quite busy. We might struggle to get too many rides in, but we'll see how we go. So that's my story. It's a long story, and I'm sorry if you lost interest at any point in there. I tried to shorten it as much as I could. So now, why the channel? Along the way, I obviously received a lot of help from other anxious riders who were part of the pass holder group on Facebook, who gave me tips. And what I want to do is I want to be able to pass on that information, and I want to bring you guys along for the rest of my journey to being, as I said before, I still consider myself an anxious rider, but I want to get past that, and 2022 could be the year that I finally do that. Obviously, my first ride on the Smiler will be due, and that will be done this year. But any further breakdowns. So this channel is just about me helping others with my affliction, if you like, people who feel nervous about rides, anxiety about rides. What I'm hoping to do is, as well as warts and all vlogs at the parks, I'll film bits of each ride, explain what the triggers were for the rides on me and how I overcame those, I suppose, and how other people could overcome them too. Because the way I look at it is, if I can help other people the way I was helped, then that's great, because now the rides are therapy for my depression. I love them. I can't wait to get back to them. And certainly this time last year, I would never have said that. I would have said, theme park trips, yeah, we'll do them. I do enjoy going to the theme parks, but the big rides, I can take it or leave it. So that's what the Anxious Rider channel is all about. It's me trying to help others, bringing people along my journey. I will hopefully do top 10s or something similar of rides rated by anxiety, or by the anxiety they cause me, certainly. And I will be asking others with the similar anxiety to me to rate them in their top 10 as well, or in their order of anxiety, because different people have different triggers when it comes to rides. That much I've learned. So it'll be interesting to see what causes anxiety for other people. But that's basically the end of it. That's our little trip around Verulamium on this beautiful sunny morning. You've listened to me waffle far long enough. Thank you if you've made it to the end. I appreciate this is a very rough vlog. I'm learning as I go. That'll only get better. But this is the one I needed to do, because this introduces me. It tells you who I am and why I'm the Anxious Rider, and will help with other videos that come, and why I film them, and what I'm talking about. So thank you very much for listening, and hopefully see you all again soon.